For many days you have walked from the village, where stories of the green coiled pond have led you to the valley. Here you find it desolate, destroyed. Crops withered to ash. And yet, no smell of burning, no corpses, no animal bones. Ahead of you on the mountain, he lies.
Imagine the situation. You've told your party of adventurers that the quest is to slay a dragon, that a great paladin was lured to the village with tales of horror and disgust, that they were plagued by a mighty Wyrm. And having arrived at the village, you see strange signs, odd, contradictory signs. The people are all in expensive-looking clothes that are now patched and soiled and dirty. Even the lowest of them dresses like a prince, and yet they barter with eggs and pebbles. They have buildings crumbled in ruins. They know how to do nothing. They have no skills at all. Roof beams rotted through. Princes apparently squatting in ramshackle building sheds. Animals roaming the street, eating the corpses, for no one knows how to bury the bodies. And of the dragon, no one will speak. No one will admit anything. No one will tell you that they sent for any adventurers, that they've ever been terrorized. There's no evidence of a religious group. There's no evidence even of a ruling council or a lord. What on earth has happened? They seem very keen to get you out of the way and insist that you go immediately to a nearby valley. It quickly give you directions. They can't give you any supplies. They have nothing. They tell you that the valley is full of food. It's lush and it's verdant, and there are crops everywhere. That you will find fresh water, clear, crystal water, healing water. That you will find trees abundant with fruits of every description, of every colour, of lush, luxurious trees, canopies of darkest green, lemons, oranges, peaches, just there to be pulled from the tree. So you leave. And as you leave, the weather doesn't just become bad, it becomes weirdly unpredictable. It snows. Half an hour later, you are battered by a sun that almost causes you sunstroke. You come across dry riverbeds. You come across dead cattle. No sign of disease, no sign of predation. Just dead where they stood. Whole herds of sheep, seemingly just fallen to the ground, dead, still with fleeces. Now rotted, but not rotted so long ago that this is a centuries-old mystery. There are signs that this happened within the last 5 years. Trackers, rangers, elves among you can see signs that this is recent. It's not normal, but it's recent. Then the rain begins and it pounds down. But there are no puddles. The dry riverbeds don't fill. The observant amongst your party noticed the hissing as the water evaporates as it hits the ground. And yet, touching the ground, there is no heat. What's happened? How could this be? It does not make any sense. It is totally and utterly bewildering. You can expand upon that, because I've just made it up so it's long. It's probably rubbish. But what if I was to tell you that the whole purpose of this story, this adventure, is to reinvent the myth of the dragon? Because in some cultures, dragons are necessary. Not necessarily evil, they're necessary. They are creators. They're deified. And without dragons, there is chaos. What if you introduce to your game a dragon who doesn't threaten the valley? He doesn't terrorize the valley. He creates the valley. He creates the verdant life that the villagers spoke of. He created their wealth and riches, not wealth and riches that he stored in a hoard. The wealth and riches that they took away, not begrudgingly. He doesn't begrudge that. His purpose is to sustain and create the valley. The villagers are the ones that have become greedy. Man has become greedy. They want the benefits where they all wore their beautiful clothes and they lived in their magnificent palaces and they all ate like kings and didn't need to do anything because they had the money to get other people to do it for them. But that wasn't enough. They believed that they could rid themselves of the dragon that way, laying claim to the valley, calling themselves lords of the valley without having to pay any attention to the dragon who created the valley. Not that the dragon wasn't seeking that. The dragon wasn't saying, love me, or I will destroy you. The dragon just was being. The dragon was happy. But the people weren't. They were greedy. And that greed led them, they later discover, to hire a mercenary or mercenaries. You play that out as you like. Who has killed the poor dragon, whose body you see upon the mountain. And that has killed, not destroyed, it has killed the valley. And the people can't do anything because for 1,000 years they've done nothing. They've not had to. They've grown up having everything done for them. Now they've nothing. But you've received the message about the dragon long after the dragon's been killed. So you're on a wild goose chase. You're on a wild dragon chase. Because by the time you get there, it's too late. It's all over. There's all ways you can have, stretch that and hint slowly, can't you? You could find fruit. You could still find corn, maybe, amongst this desolate valley. And it looks great. But when you eat it, it tastes of ash. That might be nice. Well, it's not nice, but you know what I mean. And my thought was perhaps when you get to the dragon, you find something. Maybe its heart is still beating. And you can then subtly, because you're all clever dungeon masters, see where your clues and your adventurers' inclinations have taken them. Do they pierce the dragon heart and go back to the villagers thinking that's what the villagers want. Might be what the villagers want. Maybe the villagers are still blaming the dragon for something the dragon never did. Or maybe they are starting to wonder, this is not right. And they might start to think, how can I put this right? Can I put this right? And this for you might be the end of your adventure. It might be the middle of an adventure that goes forth into other bits. Maybe there is some sort of runic inscription. Maybe you find an old scroll. Maybe there's hint of finding a dragon's egg and bring it back to replace the dragon that's been killed, to give the valley back its dragon. Perhaps you don't give a monkeys and you're just disappointed that there's not a big pile of dragon's treasure. But this dragon was never going to have any treasure. Now, that I've not made that up. Well, I've made the story up, but I haven't made up that type of dragon. That type of dragon exists in the mythology of other lands. There are so many different sorts of dragons. They aren't all Smaug. That's very Western. And even in Western culture, like with the Mabinogion and so on, if you get like the Welsh red dragon fighting the English white dragon, that it's not black and white. It's not dragon bad, St. George good, dragon bad. Why? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe in your world, not all dragons are bad. Maybe in your world, not all dragons are good. Not knowing is going to give your team a puzzle, because they ain't just going to be able to ride up and slaughter dragons. They're going to have to work out what sort of dragon they've got. And if it's able to communicate, as Smaug does, maybe those pleasantries and exchanges of speech are not slimy and corrupted and feeling false. Maybe they are genuine. Have a think. I don't know what I'm doing. Reimagine dragons. That's the message. Reimagine dragons. All right. Ta-ra, Chuck.